Hi everyone and welcome back to another tutorial. I know it's been a little bit late this week with tutorials. I've just been so busy these past couple of days, working night shift, late shifts and that kind of thing. So it was just a little tricky trying to get it on time this week. I hope you don't mind. This week, now I was going to paint something to kind of commemorate my mother this week, but I just have not found that painting yet. I haven't found that scene just quite yet. I have a couple in mind and I have a couple saved on my phone as well, but I just kind of haven't gotten that scene just yet. Do you know what I mean? The ones I have just do not kind of feel right, and they're kind of lacking something. So I'm just still looking for the perfect scene to kind of commemorate kind of my mother's memory, and something I know she would have loved. A kind of a place that, now I do know a couple of places that she would have loved to have been able to get to. One of those places is the tulip fields in the Netherlands. I know she loved that place and she wanted to get, I think she went there once, and it was just her favourite place. So something like that. I'm just looking for the right one. I might do it next week. I have a couple in mind. But anyway, back to this week's tutorial. I'm going to try something nice and simple but effective. I want to kind of go back to some of the more basic techniques in my style of painting. So for any amateurs or beginners who are watching, this is for you. You can pick up a lot of hints and tips on this. And even if you're the more progressed artist and you're kind of pushing on a little bit, you'll love this as well, because I'm going to try and show you how to create a wonderful contrasting painting with loads of impact but with very little effort. Do you understand what I mean? And it's going to be an interesting one. I hope it turns out as nice as I think it's going to turn out. It's just basically kind of walking through, it's like a footpath, let me rephrase. It's like a pathway going through a field. So like, let's say for all the world, it's like a roadway which is kind of overgrown, going through the field, kind of a wheat field, and very bright, rich yellows on that field, sunlight being cast. But now I was going to do a very dramatic sky in this, but I think I'll keep it just as the reference photograph is. It's a subtle, soft, plain sky, no clouds, and kind of a walkway through a field, and then we can add in later maybe a woman with a white dress or something walking through the field on this pathway, okay? So it's just something, lots of lights, lots of darks, just to kind of, I suppose, to show you how you can create a lot of contrast in a painting with lots of lights and lots of darks. It's a simple enough kind of tutorial. Let's just try it and see how it goes. I'll try to explain as best I can as I'm going along everything I'm doing, okay? So I have a 16 by 20 primed canvas board. There's my palette. Let's crack on and let's try and have a bit of fun with this one. This will be an interesting one, okay? Don't go anywhere. Okay, let's do this and have a bit of fun. There's the photograph. Now, can you see that? It's very, it's very simple, but it's very dramatic as well. That's what I like about this type of a scene, and we can add a person then walking in the distance. Do you see what I mean? It's just the light on the top of this grass here. It's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. I really love that, and I want to capture really strong shadows and really strong lights on this. Okay, so look, that's the plan. Let's have a go and see. Let's just try it and see how we go. Now I'll tell you what colours I have. I have titanium white, cadmium yellow pale, I have Naples yellow, some burnt sienna, I have a little phaylo blue, I have a little cadmium red, some burnt umber, and some black, which is very messy because it started running down my palette. For some reason the black inside the tube is very oily. There's loads of oil when you open it, and the oil kind of drips out everywhere. Why, I don't know. It's just the way it's been made, I suppose, and it gets very messy, you see, it's all over the place. So that's my palette. It's just a paper palette, 16 by 20 canvas. I primed this once with a water-based white undercoat primer. That's it, plain and simple. Then I gave it a rub of some very light sandpaper. Now the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to just get some tissue ready in my hand, alright? And then what I'm going to do is do a quick sketch of the horizon line across this. Now I'm going to go just below the middle of the canvas roughly, okay? I don't want to go too high because one thing to know about when you're drawing or when you're painting images like this and you have like a footpath going off into the distance or something like that, just remember that the higher up your horizon line goes, that means basically, if you're standing at the scene, that means that you're looking down on the scene, or you're looking down on the roadway from a high point. So the higher up you bring a horizon line, the more you're looking down on the scene from above. Do you get me? If you want to create a lot of distance in your painting, you might generally think, especially when you're just learning, that the higher horizon line will give you a lot more to look at down here, thus creating a lot more distance. It works the opposite, okay? So if you bring your horizon line down very low, even like this, it will tell the viewer that you're almost kneeling down on the floor taking the photograph, okay? And it's going right off into the distance. So just remember that the lower down the horizon line, the more distance you're actually going to get. Now, a general rule of thumb is a third of the way on your canvas would be the minimum for a horizon line, okay? Any lower than that and it just won't look right. So a third of the way minimum, just remember that. So I'm going to go, even on the photograph now, it's almost center, okay? I'm going to just bring it down a little bit more, okay? Just around here. And we have, let's just mark the points of the footpath. So we have, let's go here. And remember as well, when doing this in a footpath or a roadway or lane or something, the wider out you bring your footpath like this, the more perspective you're going to get as well. So you could, I mean, the one there now is not too bad. That's just borderline for me, okay? I will go maybe a little bit wider here, and then kind of bring it up, and then it goes off into the distance like that, okay? And then we have another one here. Let's go around here, and then we're going to come across and go around here with that. So this one now is going at a slight angle, isn't it? And this one goes at another angle like this. So you can see now what's happening, can't you? Okay. And then this one again over here, it's fairly wide. I'm going to go fairly wide, and this almost goes to disappearing point up here as well. So let's just go like that, okay? It doesn't have to be perfect. This one is a bit wide up here, isn't it? So let's turn this in just a little bit. You see? Just like that. We can kind of change things as we go as well. You know, if it's not right the first time, we can change it. Now, so I'm fairly happy with that, okay? That's not bad. Now we don't need to worry about fence posts or anything like that, okay? Let's leave that as it is. So the next thing I'm going to do now is take a little bit of tissue, right? And I'm going to take some of my linseed oil. Now let me just get linseed oil over here. This is my tub of linseed oil. You can buy this in any art store, alright? And I'm just going to wet the sky on this. Now the canvas is fine as it is. I could paint directly onto it, but I just want to put a little touch of this oil on the canvas just to help the paint blend that much easier, okay? That bit easier. It will help. Now I know a lot of you would probably think, well, it's the same as using liquid clear. If you watch the Bob Ross tutorials, you would say, well, is it the same as using liquid clear? It is and it isn't, for the reason that when you're using liquid clear, liquid clay will stay wet on your canvas for a while. Okay, this will only stay wet for 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes. After that, it kind of soaks into the canvas. Now, even if it soaks into the canvas, it's fine, because when I put a wet paint on the canvas, then it will unlock that oil and it will just glide across the canvas lovely. Let's try it. I'm going to use my large stubby brush, okay? Lovely small stubby brushes. I have a set of these here. If you're interested, just let me know, okay? And there's a link there as well for the brushes. I did have just a set of 3, okay? Large, medium and small. Alright? But I'm going to add an extra one to it. I think I might. A little round one for trees and branches and that kind of thing, alright? So you could have like a lovely set of stubby brushes. These are the ones I use. Okay? Let me know what you think. Okay? You can get them off me if you really want to. Let's take a large stubby brush, and this now is only just being used. It's only just kind of a relatively new brush. So it's still not kind of full that I want it. It's not as full as I would like. Okay? So it takes a couple of uses for this to thicken up. Let's get painting. The sky is very subtle, okay? I'm going to start with the very light section in the middle. I'm going to take some white, lots of titanium white, and a touch of blue, a tiny touch of blue, okay? Again, a touch of thinners in this, just a tiny touch, just to soften it out to make it a little bit kind of creamy, alright? Now look, I'm going to put that across, right across the bottom. And that's gliding beautifully right across there now. Now it is, I'll be honest, it is a little bit on the wet side. It's just because the oil that's already there almost thins it slightly as you put it on as well. Do you get me? So bear that in mind. Now, going across here first with a very, very light section just down at the bottom. And it just kind of darkens slightly then as it goes up. And there may be even a hint of red in this as well as it comes kind of higher up the canvas. Now loads of white, a tiny bit of blue, loads of white. It's just going to get slightly darker as it comes up, alright? Again, a touch of turpentine just with the corner of your brush, just to thin it very, very slightly. I may take a hint of cadmium red, a tiniest little hint, okay? And let's darken this ever so slightly. Now you can see how the oil is helping. The oil is really almost dry, okay? But it's still helping the paint move nicely on the canvas. It's only just when you're doing large skies like this, I would apply maybe a thin layer of oil. I've only been doing this only up until a couple of weeks ago. I just tried it once and I kind of liked the feeling of it. So I do kind of use it every now and again. I don't do it all the time. Sometimes I just paint directly onto the canvas. It depends if you're doing a large area. It's very handy for that. It just means that it doesn't soak in while you're working on a large sky. Now, a little bit of white, a little bit of blue. As it comes up, I'm going to change the tone slightly. I'm going to take a hint of black, okay? And it's going to kind of go almost a little bit of a grey hue, okay? Only just a hint. Just a little, look, see? It's only just a little darker, that's all. It's not a vibrant kind of a blue. If you look at the photograph now, you'll see it's not a vibrant blue. It's a sort of it's a very soft kind of a dim, dull kind of a blue. And I think that's just probably to do with the settings on the camera. Whoever took the photograph, they were kind of changing settings around on the camera, that kind of thing. That's all it is. So I just want to kind of create that feeling. It's a lovely, it has that lovely feeling in the sky. Now, let's drag this across. I'm going to soften it down into the rest of the sky. Okay, that's coming on nice. Some more thinners, some more white, little phthalo blue, a little hint of red, and a tiny hint of black. That's pretty much the mix. The hint of red will just warm it slightly. And just put this on side to side all the way across. Okay. Now you can, if you like, mix loads of paint together and just make a big puddle of paint in the centre of your palette. If that's the way you like to paint, you can do that. But I prefer to kind of just mix little pieces as I go along. That's just the way I've kind of learned over the years. A lot of people will just grab a palette knife and take big lumps of paint and mix it all together. You can do that too, but I find that a terrible waste of paint. I really do, because you're only using a little bit of it and then you're left with a load on your palette at the very end. It's just me, you know, everyone is different, but paint whichever way you feel more comfortable with. Now, soften that in there, right? Then I'm going to just darken then around the top edge, okay? Almost like a semicircle. So I'm going to take some phthalo blue, a little cadmium red, a little black. Then I'm going to soften some of that, go across the top like this, okay? Then I'm going to soften it down the sides. Okay, let's go along the corners like this. Let's just go like that again on this side. It doesn't have to be a huge difference, just a little subtle darkness up in the corners, okay? Now I'm going to take my soft brush, my makeup brush, as a lot of women would know out there. Now there's a little bit of green still on this from, even though it's dry. See now, look, when I scrape this on the canvas, you can see there's still a little bit of green on the top of it, but it's fine, it's completely dry, it's not going to transfer. That just means I didn't really clean it very, very well, that's all. Go across here. I can see a tiny bit of patchiness just here. I think that's when I was priming the canvas. I may have just missed a little bit of the old canvas underneath when I was putting on primer. You will get that sometimes, but I'm not really too worried about that, to be honest. I'm not worried at all. Now, give this a quick clean, right? So we have that near enough to what we want, yes? We can darken it maybe a little bit later. We'll see how the painting looks. In fact, you know what now? I think we need to darken it slightly on one side. So you see we're kind of changing as we go, and that's what I like about painting in real time like this, is because there's no set way. This is not edited to be absolutely perfect each time. I see a lot of tutorials. I do watch a lot of tutorials as well, by the way. I see a lot of tutorials online and they're absolutely perfect from start to finish. There's never any mistakes or anything like that. And that's just because there's a lot of editing. They edit out all the little mistakes that they make and they try to produce an absolutely perfect tutorial. You know, in real life, that doesn't happen, I don't think. In real life, you make a mistake, you want to share it with everyone and show them how you fix the mistake. So that's why I prefer to paint this these tutorials in one sitting. I don't like to stop recording and then paint for 20 minutes so you don't see what I'm after painting. I like to show you what I'm doing from start to finish, and that's why I think my tutorials stand out a little bit more than some of the others, okay? I know there are a lot more in-depth, a lot nicer tutorials, I'd say, out there than mine, but that's fine, everyone is different. But this is the way I like to do it. I like to give you everything in real time, okay? The only editing I actually do on my tutorials is I put fade-ins and transitions, and I put titles and that kind of thing. That's the only editing I do. The video itself is completely 100% the actual video which I've recorded. Now, that's the sky for now. Let's move on to the trees, and a nice little tutorial here now on trees. I'm excited about this because I love showing you my trees and that kind of thing, and there's easy ways of doing trees and there's difficult ways of doing trees. I'm just going to give you the nice easy way of doing trees, okay? Right, let me catch my breath. Let me take a nice middle of the road kind of a brush here now, alright? Flat kind of brushes, but they're sort of worn. I'm not going to use a brand new little stubby, okay? Because this is too sharp. This is just too sharp, and I'm not going to be able to paint trees properly with this. What you want is something that's slightly worn. So you can see these, they're slightly worn, they're sort of a little bit bushy. They're kind of splaying outwards slightly. This is perfect for trees. That's what you want. I think I'll go with this one here. This is a number, it's a number 6 flat, okay? Just a regular soft flat. Now I'm going to dampen this with a tiny bit of turpentine and dry it. So it's not completely dry. And a dark green. Now everything in this is warm. So when I'm making a warm dark green, what I would say to you is black and yellow, okay? Black and yellow with either burnt umber or burnt sienna. That's it. That's all you need. You could use red, but I prefer burnt umber or sienna. Let's try it. Let's take some black, okay? And I know you would think logic would say to you, black and yellow don't make a green, but they actually do. Watch this. Look at that. A lovely rich kind of an olive green. Now you could just use a green out of a tube if you wish. I think that just makes it quite limited. I prefer to mix my greens. I always mix my greens. It just gives you a much more natural green. Black and yellow, look at that. Lovely. How lovely is that? A nice rich green. If you want to make it slightly warmer, take a hint of sienna. Okay? And if you want to make it slightly cooler, let me show you. Take a hint of blue. And that will give you a cool green. So you have every kind of a green you ever want. Isn't that amazing? Okay? Now, I'm going to start off with a very, very dark green on this because I like to work dark to light with oils, okay? So, black and yellow, but lots of black. Let's start off. We don't have to copy the reference photograph exactly, alright? Let's just go our own way. And one thing you will notice is it's mixing with the white there. Okay? So, for that reason, I'm going to compensate by adding yellow and a little hint of burnt umber. I'm just going to compensate that going a kind of a pasty white colour. I'm just going to go across here and fill it in very loosely, okay? Like that. Very, very loosely. I'm going to put a nice one up there. I'm going to wipe my brush again. Normally, what I would say to you is if you're doing this at home and you have lots of time on your hands, just leave the sky dry, okay? You could do that. Just let the sky dry, and then you won't have this effect where it's mixing together. I'm going to go a nice couple of bushy ones across here, okay? Across the roadway here. Like that. Clean the brush again. Let's try burnt umber, a little hint of yellow. Across like that. That's a nice, now this is very nice bright kind of a green, okay? A nice bright landscape green. I want it nice and dark, so I'm just going to clean the brush, take some black, some yellow, some burnt umber, and I'm going to go nice and dark with some of these here. See? And I'm not doing any particular style, I'm just moving my brush around, getting all these just blocked in. That's all I'm worried about now, is getting stuff blocked in. And I'm going to create a little bit of foliage on the centre ones, So I'm just going to go with my brush. You see, look, I'm pushing all the paint to the tip of the brush. Alright? And I'm going to go up here and just dab around on the edges like so. And all I'm doing is just roughing up the edges, that's all. You see? And I'm turning my brush as well as I do this. I'm kind of twisting my brush around. You should try it. Very, very good. Now the stubby brushes are fantastic for this because they give you lots of great control. I'm not a big fan of using long handled brushes. I think the short handled brushes are much more convenient. You can use long handled brushes if you're standing way back from the canvas and you're like this. Okay, they're fine, but I prefer this much more. I think it's just more intimate or something. It just brings you closer to the canvas and you have a little more control and more feeling over the brush. So let's get this in here like this. Let's go up a bit higher with this one here. Okay. Now, I think I will just leave it at that for now. Dare I say, actually go a bit higher. Like that. I'm just being careful, I don't want to spoil the composition either. Okay? And I'm going to say the shadow is on the left hand side, okay? Of all the trees and of the shadows and the roadway and all this, okay? So the light is coming from the right hand side. So we've established that point, okay? Light is coming from the right. So that means I'm going to now first just darken, clean my brush now quickly on some tissue, take some black and a little burnt umber, and I'm just going to darken a lot of these on the left hand side and coming down to the bottom as well, okay? Because that is how we create contrast between this and the field. So the field is going to be very bright, very rich yellowy sienna kind of a colour against this lovely dark tree line. So I'm making it dark just along the bottom, okay? And let's go look a little bit on the left hand sides of some of these. Like so. Let's take a bit of brown. Now there's a lot of burnt umber in this. You probably can't see it. It may just look like a black to you, but use plenty of burnt umber because it'll complement the yellows. It's nice and warm. It's a nice dark, warm, dark colour. Do you understand? Now I'm going to go with just black around here because it's very, very dark in around here, isn't it? Okay, let me sit back now and just take a quick look at this. Now that's not bad. I'm going to clean my brush. I'm going to just dip it in turpentine quickly and give it a good clean on this. And then I'm going to start adding some lights. Now the lighter colours on these trees, I'm going to use cadmium yellow burnt sienna. Alright, let's take a dry brush, cadmium yellow, a little burnt sienna, because there's a lot of yellow in this. Now let's take plenty of that yellow, plenty of cadmium yellow, little burnt sienna, and I'm going to start with this first, okay? Now, let's just try it and see what happens. Let's go with this one here. Start on the left and soften it in, okay? Now, when you see a little bit of dirt on the tip of your brush, take it off with that, look. Okay? That will keep your brush nice and clean. Let's go out here, a little bit of that. And soften it back into your dark. Okay? Now, I'm just cleaning it gently with some turpentine. I don't want to spoil all of the colour. Okay? Now, more of that again. Let's go along the outside of this one. Soften that back. like so. I need to soften this here, don't I? Okay. So you can begin to see the idea now of what I'm doing. Okay. And this is how I just paint my lovely, simple trees. I'm just using the tips of the bristles, okay? Now the brush is nice and soft, so it's giving me lots of tiny little marks. You could use a hard bristle brush for this as well, but you won't get the same effect. It'll just be sort of blobs of paint. Now I'll take just some yellow on its own, and we could try a little bit of yellow on its own as well. Just try some separate bushes, look. Okay. Let's try one or two down here. Couple. So now we have all the highlights coming from the same direction. I did make this mistake once before of doing the highlights and the shadows wrong way around. I think it was a boat tutorial, it was a boat on the beach. I done the highlights this way on the clouds and the highlight this way on the boat. I made a big mistake, but look, that's how you learn, isn't it? Now, there we go. So I think now that will do fine. I think that's okay. I may even add a hint of sienna into one or two of these. I think sienna might just warm it just a little bit more. Just pop a little bit through here and there. There, fine. Now that will do. How's that looking now? Are we happy? Let's go now and do this lovely field over here. I'll stick with the same brush, I think. Just give it a slight damp, some turpentine. Let's take lots of yellow in this. It's a very subdued kind of a colour. I'm thinking burnt sienna, cadmium yellow, and perhaps some burnt umber in that, because there's a hint of a green going through that as well. Now if you mix burnt umber with yellow, you get a very muddy kind of a green. So I think the burnt umber in this with the yellow might give me that kind of a colour. That's not bad. Let's just try this, will we? Okay, go along and push that up under your tree line. It doesn't have to be perfect, look. You can sort of fade it together a little bit if you like. There we go. Bring it right over into this line here now. No, I'm in the wrong line actually. So, you see, I made a small mistake. Just scrape this out, okay? There. I'm going to bring it like this. And when you're painting something like this, like a field, try to keep your brush strokes left to right. Don't paint up and down like this, okay? Paint it left and right. That will give you more distance in your field. Okay, let's mix up a little bit more of that. Some yellow, some burnt umber, little sienna, just fill this in for now. Just worry about covering your white canvas, okay? Don't worry if the colour is not perfect. We work on the colour. Just cover that canvas there now. There we go. So the next thing I want to do now is just put a nice bright highlight up there. I'm going to take some cadmium yellow with naples yellow, and I'm going to put a nice bright highlight right across there like that. Okay? And I'm going to soften it down then. Bring it down into the field to let it sort of soften away. Now you can bring it across here and there as well. Create some light across your field, look. Just like that. Now, nice and simple. And the next thing I'm going to do then is take a fan brush And what I'm going to do is create just some texture on the field, because it's not completely flat. It needs to look kind of grassy. Isn't that right? So let's take some burnt umber, some burnt sienna, and a little touch of cadmium yellow. Okay, and let's just go and dab, 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 dab. Okay, I'm just going straight on with the brush. Alright. Now I'm not trying to create individual little blades of grass. That would be impossible. Well, it's not impossible, but it would take me hours. So I'm just trying to create a little bit of texture in the field. That's it. Nothing else, a little bit of texture. And let that sort of disappear off into that colour above it. Okay? You see? Just creating that little bit. So it's not completely smooth now, is it? It has a nice rough feel to it. And the other thing now we have is hints of green along here, and I'm going to darken this now considerably as well. So with the same brush, I'm going to take some black. Okay, I'll take some burnt sienna and a bit of cadmium red. I'm going to try that. So a nice rich warm colour. I'm going to darken that down towards the front. Now you can, if you like, give it little flicks upwards. Look, do that too by all means. Just to vary it. Let's try a bit more red. I'm just touching the canvas and flicking upwards. That's all. I'm not going crazy. There we go. How's that? Let's go up a little bit, look, just on one side. Just kind of vary the texture. Okay, now that's nice and simple, isn't it? Let's give this a quick wipe with some tissue, a little bit of turpentine, give it a wipe, and let's create that kind of green, that greeny look it has just at the edge. Okay, I'm going to take some cadmium yellow, mix it with a little of the black, and let's take a hint of sienna actually, and cadmium yellow. It's a very, very warm green kind of a tone, isn't it? Look, this has that kind of a feeling, doesn't it? So I'm aiming just to get this kind of colour now, just at the edge of the pat, okay? Just pop a little bit of it in here and there. I'm just kind of starting to create some of the outlines now of, you know, some of the shapes of the reeds and bushes along the edge here, you see? Now a little bit of cadmium yellow with Naples yellow. And let's go up here with that. You see, I'm just kind of holding it upright. Perhaps a hint of sienna. Just going along. Let's take a hint of white. Because up here you can see it's very bright, isn't it? And I want to create that very bright look. Now this may be a little bit on the big side of this fan brush, okay? As you can see, it's very difficult to get little bits off in the distance. But look, it's doing the job, it's not bad. Let's take some sienna, cadmium yellow and Naples yellow. There's that very nice rich colour. It's almost like the sun is casting through it, isn't it? Let's go down here and create some of that. And then what I'm going to do is, just at the very end, I'm going to give it a very kind of a dark edge. Let's try some of the black in the burnt umber. Even just burnt umber on its own would probably suffice. I'm going to give it a very dark edge just at the very end, okay? Just a little hint of it here and there, and it almost kind of softens up then into the colour above it, you see. Now this is only just the initial getting the colours in, okay? We can add loads of highlights later with the palette knife and all that kind of stuff. Let's get, okay, what I might do is, with this brush actually, I might take some rich yellow. I want to create some of the bright yellowy reeds coming up here. So I'm going to take some cadmium yellow, little white, and up, very high up, they go up into these trees here, don't they? Let's just bring some of those up. You see? It's just little tiny suggestions. You see what I mean? Just one or two. And we have a couple of slightly warmer ones then down in the front here. And you can't even see the stalks on these, they're so fine. You could look, if you really wanted to, take a fine pointy brush, take some of the yellow, some of the Naples yellow perhaps, and put a little hint of some of the stalks, if you really wanted to. Okay, but you don't really have to. And different directions as well. Now this is all wet into wet, so you can see it's kind of mixing with colours underneath, but that's fine. The next thing I want to do now is I want to get the fence. Well, I could do the fences now, or I could do them later. I'll do them later, okay? Let's just concentrate on getting this all filled in here, okay? I'm going to start with, I'll start with the footpaths here. And I'm using the same brush again. I'm going to try a little Naples yellow, little burnt sienna, little white. We'll just try that first. It's a very sandy kind of a colour. Okay, just a touch of burnt umber in this. Let me get some more of that. Naples yellow, burnt umber, and a hint of sienna. So I'm using the same colours throughout this painting then, you see, and each colour will tie itself with the next one, helping the composition, okay? Now this line doesn't have to be completely straight over here. You can see on the reference photograph, it's very sort of in and out and in and out. It's very rough. You see? So just keep your brush strokes left to right, horizontal. Okay, just like that. And just pull that out there slightly. Okay, that's one. And now as we have this colour, we might as well do the other side, will we? Why not? See, I'm just pulling in the initial footpath with this brush stroke up and down, but then I'm going across it, you know what I mean? It's just a quick way of filling it in, that's all. Take some Naples yellow, burnt umber, burnt sienna. And this is a nice fun tutorial to try. You could simplify this as well yourself, by the way, okay? By all means, just keep it simple yourself. If you feel that this is too complicated for you, then, you know, just add your own little bits to it. Now let's create a little bit of shadow here and there. Let's take burnt sienna, little cadmium red with some black, and I'm going to just pull that across here, you see? Just a couple of shadows here and there. And the same on this one. Just keeping it simple. Now there is a nice shadow as well. I can see a kind of a mauvey shadow in this. I'm going to take a clean brush, some blue, some red and a hint of white, okay? Just a hint. Now I want this kind of dark. So not too much white, but not too much blue either. So there's a kind of a nice warm mauve there, okay? And I can see a kind of a mauvey shadow popping through here and there. So I'm just pulling it from the right hand side across over some of these. And let's add some of that to the other side. Do you know, just to balance out the painting. Okay. Now, soften that just with the soft brush for a moment, yes? Soften it together. Then I'm going to take my fine brush, my little pointy brush, and I'm going to just start adding little bits of detail to this. Let's start with some black and some burnt umber, okay? And I'm just going to go along the edge here, just here and there, and give it a little hint of little touches of dark detail just along the edge, okay? And some of the shadows will be a little bit stronger as well. They'll have slightly darker lines here and there. Plus little dots, just to suggest little bits of pebbles and rocks, all that kind of stuff. You see what I mean? And we have a nice one here. Just keeping it simple. There we go now. So how's that? Perhaps one or two just up there. And then clean our brush and let's put a little bit of light as well. I'm going to take some Naples yellow and cadmium yellow, because there's a little hint of a light as well around some of these. Just on the left hand side there's little tiny amounts of light. Okay, there we go. Just kind of keeping it simple. And it gets slightly darker now as it comes down. A little bit of sienna in that. And warmer as well. Okay. And I'll go way off now into the distance, and I'm going to lighten the roadway as well. Also, very far off, it's very, very bright up there on the tip of these, okay? It's very bright. Okay, there we go. Now, how are we looking so far? So that's not too bad now so far, is it? We can work more on shadows and stuff like that later. I'm just kind of showing you quickly how, how to kind of create something with an impact. Now, if you wanted to, you could as well just take a fan brush and add some texture to the roadway with that. For instance, okay, just like this, very lightly, just here and there. So that's another way of doing it. You could say, let's for instance put a bit of dark across the bottom of the roadway just here and leave it soften up. Ever so slightly, creating a much rougher kind of a walkway. Okay, don't have to do this, but it's just another way of creating texture. Now, let's move to the separate piece in the middle here. I'm going to take another brush that I used first for all of this, okay? This flat brush, and I'm going to mix first a medium kind of a green. We'll go with that, okay? So let's try some cadmium yellow, little touch of black. That would even do. Let's just fill this in here. Now just going along like this. And you can see my mixes that I'm doing here are really thin, okay? They're very thin mixes. Because I don't like to put very thick paint on too early on in the painting, if that makes sense. Okay, and I'm going to actually bring it out a bit more on this side here. So I'm just flicking my brush upwards, look, just like that. Now, I think I will go to, let me see now. Let me think now what's the best brush to use for this. I will go to my fan brush. Let me get some more yellow out here. And I'm going to take some, I'm going to darken this right down now very dark at the bottom, okay? And blend it upwards. Let's take some black and some yellow and some burnt umber. And let's just flick that colour upwards, okay? And let that soften. Let that soften out. Now you can go out into your roadway as well, if you like, look. Just a little. Let that soften another little bit. Let's just put another little bit up there, okay? Just a tiny amount. And I'm going to go really dark at the bottom then. Some burnt umber and black. Okay, now, the next thing to do is I'm going to just clean this. I'm going to dip it in my turpentine, give it a good clean, soak off some of that paint. Now let's get a fresh piece of tissue, soak off that. Then I'm going to go to a very bright colour, alright? Now, what I want to do first is, I want to just strengthen some shadows at the side of that there, okay? Because then we'll have a lot of bright whitey yellow colours coming over those, thus creating a nice contrast. Okay? What that will do is just one or two, just here and there, okay? Right, that'll do fine. And then I'm going to start putting on very bright colour on the top of this. But I'm only going to use the edge of the fan brush first, okay? So I'm thinking cadmium yellow, little white, perhaps a hint of Naples yellow just to soften it slightly. So I'm going to start with this and I'm just going to go very gently . across like this. Let's get a bit more. Now, as it comes down and then a little bit, okay, I want to create more sort of kind of stronger blades of grass. Alright, I want to take a hint of white in this, and then what I'm going to do is gently flick upwards. Okay. So you can see now, it's just, they're a little bit kind of stronger in colour. I'll take a hint of blue as well, actually. And I'm twisting the fan brush as well as I go, alright? Now, we stand back from that just for a moment. And let me take a bit of yellow, a bit of white, and create little tiny suggestions just of lots of different little bits and bobs. That's what I like to call it, bits and bobs. Try a bit of yellow just on its own, and right up on top then some yellow with some white, because it's very, very bright up there, isn't it? Okay, now how's that? Yeah, that's not too bad. I'm going to soften the roadway in just ever so slightly to create that feeling of it sort of disappearing off into the distance, okay? Just ever so slightly. There. Now let's move across. Moving swiftly across. Now when we're doing these things down here, okay, we can just add little flicks of light colour, okay? It could be little bits of grass on the floor, you know what I mean? Just could be anything. Just little dabs of colour here and there. Okay, now moving across. This is the big one over here now, isn't it? This is nice and big. Let's go to a slightly larger brush. I'll go with slightly bigger flat brush, okay? Dampen that. Let's go with, let's start, I'm going to just put in the base colour with some cadmium yellow and sienna, okay? Because it's a very bright colour over here, isn't it? Now, how am I doing for time? I have 40 odd minutes, that's not bad. We're going through this quick enough, aren't we? I'm not worried about this field because this is just covered in bushes, okay? It's all bushes the whole way up. I'm just filling in this colour here now. Just to cover the canvas, nothing else. Little bit of black, bit of yellow. Put that in down here. Perhaps a touch of burnt umber actually, as well. Now we'll just create the line of this going off into the distance, okay? So this now is my base colour for down here. It's like the medium colour for this section. What I'm going to do then is, I'm going to take my small brush and drag some nice dark shadows across there. I'll take some blue and some red and a little black, and I'm going to just drag some strong shadows across here first. Just to get them in. We don't have to be too particular with these now, it's just a couple of dark lines, that's all, okay? Now, I'm thinking now, fan brush again, yes? Let's give the fan brush a good clean now this time. And I may need to change some of my turpentine because my turpentine is gone quite dull. See that? It's gone very dark. So what I'm going to do is just take an old tissue, soak up that turpentine there, take it all out, look, nice and clean again. And let's pop some fresh turpentine into that. So I have turpentine with linseed oil already in it, okay? Just a drop. Little touch of linseed oil, it just helps. And let's take a nice clean brush. Let's start with, I'm thinking the very bright shade, or maybe we should do the dark. I think we'll go with the dark side first, yes? Let's go with a very dark colour first. Let's add some burnt umber, some burnt sienna, into a little black, a touch of green, okay? And I'm just going to go along here. Let's create the outline of it first, okay? And then let's gently start going up with just one corner of your fan brush. Let's just start bringing it upwards. And that's just giving us now the direction. It's just telling you which direction the bush is kind of coming up at. Okay? Soften it in down here. Let's go along like that. Now let's try a bit more. Some burnt umber, cadmium yellow. Put all that on your brush, nice and thick. Take a bit of burnt umber, perhaps. Try some burnt umber in that. Darken it up, soften it up there into that colour. So now we're going to then start adding the lights. But before I do that now, I just want to get really dark down in the bottom down here. I'll try maybe even touch a phaylo blue with black. There's a really dark spot down there, isn't there? There we go, that's better now. And perhaps even just black on its own. Just in there. I could probably even do the same on the other side as well, actually. So some really dark colours down in that corner down there. Okay, there. Now dip your brush in turpentine, just give it a dry, take off some of that dark colour. And now we're going to go with the really bright colours. So I'm going to start off now with the really bright yellow up on top here. Alright? I'm going to take some Naples yellow, cadmium yellow, very rich colours, a hint of white. Just to give it a bit of a punch, do you know what I mean? And let's go up here and create a line on the top of that, okay? And let's go right up into those trees. So what's happening then is, that's mixing with the colour underneath, so let's just give it a quick wipe. And then go back into our colour again. Perhaps even more yellow. There we go. Maybe a hint of Naples. The Naples is a very bright but is soft at the same time, isn't it? And let's soften that just down slightly. I'm just holding it up right now, okay? And make sure it's nice and clean. Let's get some sienna with lots of cadmium yellow. And that's a nice warm colour. Let's go along here now with that colour, kind of along the middle line. Soften them in. Isn't that coming on lovely now? Little sienna with Naples yellow over on this side, but I can see a hint of warmth in there. Let's just kind of dab it along gently. Okay. And what I'm going to do now is just very gently at the bottom, just going to pull that across into the roadway, okay? See? So it's kind of softening, but not quite. And let's even do the same with this. Let's just, what the heck, come on, let's just soften them slightly together. It creates, I think, a more natural feeling. How about that? Isn't that wonderful? So I'm just getting more cadmium yellow. And with the corner of my fan brush, let me just clean it. Cadmium yellow with some bright white. I'm just going to go up here and really give that a punch. Do the same in the middle. The same over here, okay? There we go. Now, as well as that, we could add little tiny flicks of that bright colour here and there. Yes? Just to show that they are kind of stalks and stems and all that kind of stuff going through all this. I could do a couple going this way, a couple outwards, couple inwards. Okay, just very simply. Now let's move on to our lovely, strong fence posts over here. I'm going to take a nice round. Let's go with the small stubby round, okay? Now what time have I got on my camera? I'm doing well. We have plenty of time. Let's take small stubby. I'm going to take some burnt umber. I'll start with burnt umber, I think. And let me just get myself right here now. Okay. Let's go right up here. Right down into the painting, like so. Okay, let's take more burnt umber and let's come down slightly at a nice angle here and put this one in here. And as they go off now into the distance, they're going to get narrower as well, okay? So they're not going to be the same thickness all the way. And I see a lot of people making that mistake. So this one is going to come down again at another angle like this. You see that's the angle there, you see? Okay? So imagine that line coming along. Let's go to around here. And let's give this one a little bend. Alright? Clean the brush again. And we'll add one, maybe one more. One more, okay? So there we are. The next thing I'm going to do is take my pointy brush and get some black. Just black on its own, nothing else. And let's give the back of these now a nice strong shadow. Okay, just on one side. And of course, these are very old fences, so it's not going to be completely straight, is it? Okay, give it a wiggle here and there. Don't be shy. Take more black again. This one is almost fully covered in black, so let's go right all the way almost to the front with this one. Now you could add a little hint of red into this if you want, because although it's a very dark shadow, it's warm at the same time. I can see there's a lot of warmth in this shadow, okay? So with that in mind, I'm going to take a hint of cadmium red and just push a little cadmium red into some of these. Alright, now that's the shadow side done. Let's move on to the highlight. You see how simple this is now? I'm just keeping it nice and simple. I think the highlight is basically burnt sienna, naples yellow and cadmium yellow. So it's a nice warm colour, and I didn't mix these together at all, okay? I'm just using them kind of very loosely mixed, okay, you see? Even take a hint of yellow like that. So you see then, you end up with nice tones going through this. Yellow, naples yellow. Like so. Let's give it a nice thick piece on top, yes? Let's do the same with this. And I'm putting lots of thick paint on this now as well, okay? A little bit on this one here. And how was that? Now there's one more thing we need to do. We need to sit these down into the floor, don't we? Yes, that's correct. Let's take a little cadmium yellow and burnt sienna and let's just sit those into the floor. Look, dab, 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 dab. And even some cadmium yellow with white as well. Put some of that in front of them here and there. I'll take some of the cadmium yellow, actually it's quite nice, and add some of that just around the front of these here. Just to make it a little bit thicker. I think it needs some of that there. And I might add a couple of bits of yellow here and there to this, just to warm it slightly. And we'll go the same over here, because there's a lot of yellow in this painting and I want to really show that through. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push a couple of birds in the sky, and we said we were going to paint somebody walking as well, didn't we? I think it needs something like that, doesn't it? So perhaps just a person walking. Let's get a bird in first. A couple of them. Because it's a lovely summer's day. Okay. Now we have a person walking as well. And I actually have, I downloaded a couple of images of some people walking as well. Let me see. There's a quite nice one here. But I think I'll paint this as if it were my wife, okay? So she has blonde hair. Let's try it for a bit of fun. My wife has blonde hair, so let's just get our little round brush here, and I'm going to use simply Naples yellow, perhaps a hint of sienna, hint of white, In fact, we go over here, look to this one. Let's start off with this. Where will we go? Let's go on the right hand side, because that will balance it out then, because we have the woman here and we have the fences here then, you see, with the birds. So that kind of balance the composition out slightly, do you think? Okay, let's just go like that. Okay. Now, this may not go to plan first time round. Alright, let's go like that. And then a pure white dress. And I want this nice and white. It's going to be tricky now because this is wet. It's very, very wet. Let's just try it, okay? Like that. Okay, let's just get a little bit of up around the shoulder here. Like so. Let's get some real bright colour on this side. And with a bit of shadow then on the other side, don't we? Let's take some shadow colour. Let's get a bit of red and a bit of blue. And put a bit of shadow on that side. And a little bit more, I think. Would you say so? Let's try a little bit more. And then we have the legs coming down. Let's take the skin colour. I think I'll get away with this for the skin colour, don't you think? Okay, like that, and like that. Now there will be little bits of grass and stuff covering this, so not to worry, okay? Little bit of shadow. Okay, there, like that. I must fix the hair slightly. Okay. Or she won't be happy. And let's push 2 arms out from the sides. We just go with that, yeah? And you can see, because it's so wet, it's very difficult to get this in, isn't it? Because the paint is just so wet. I'm thinking a bit darker, yes? Come on, let's try a bit darker. She might not be happy, but it's a gamble I'm prepared to take. Just so you can see it, because it's blending into the colour underneath a bit too much. Right, I need to fix the shadow as well, because the shadow is not right. Let's just take a bit of brown and put a bit of brown shadow on this arm here. And a little bit of brown under here. The shadow on the dress is just not doing it for me. It's just a little bit too blue. We'll put a bit of mauve colour over that. Okay. And a bit more white on that then. I probably should have just kept the pure white, but what harm? You learn as you go, isn't that right? Okay, then I'm going to just put some of that grass kind of cutting through her slightly. See, just sit her down as she's walking along. Now, if you think it's a bit too small, you can make her bigger. I may make her a little bit bigger later on because compared to the fence posts, she's a bit small, isn't she? So how about we make it bigger actually? Have we time? I don't know if we have the time. I just don't know. Yes, I will leave it dry and we'll see from then, okay? But look, in general, I think we've created a wonderful painting here, don't you think? I think it's fantastic. What I might do is take some of the Naples yellow with cadmium yellow and just go along here and there and add little suggestions of the reeds. You see the tips of the reeds, they can have little things on them. Just put a couple of suggestions of those here and there. Okay, you see, just a couple. You don't have to go absolutely crazy with all this, but just suggest a few. And again, as I keep saying, you can make this your own. You can add your own to it, or you can leave out the fence posts if you're nervous about painting them in. You can leave them out, by all means. Try something else. But as long as you learn something from this, I'm happy. Okay? So my friends, I think I will call it a day for now. Just maybe take some sienna and add a little darkness to the hair. Okay. Let me zoom in and let's take a look at what we have created today in this wonderful tutorial. Okay? Bear with me. Now, there we go. So a suggestion of the person walking, okay? I will let the painting dry and I will go over it again just to brighten up the white a little bit more because it's very, very thick paint at the moment. So, how was that? Nice and simple. I hope you enjoyed it. And just keep it as easy or as difficult as you wish, okay? So there we go. Turn to me, turn to me. That was really fun. I really enjoyed that. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe. If you have any questions, please do just ask, okay? Don't be shy. Happy painting. Have a go and see what you think and send it to me at stephenconway@gmail.com. You'll see the link in the description. Okay? Happy painting. Thank you all so much for your support. I will see you next week, and I have a paid painting coming for my Patreons as well very, very soon. It's going to be beautiful. So hop over and take a look at that if you wish to support me. Thank you very much and God bless my friends. I'll see you next week.